Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
The bugaloose, the bugaloose. We're in the air and everywhere, flying high, flying free on a summer breeze.
I hate you so much. Welcome to episode 77 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Big 77. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your murdery. We're fresh off our late Halloween episode. Again, I'm so sorry that we were late on that one. We just, our times just got away from us. So now everybody's getting ready for Thanksgiving.
Yay!
So anyway, so again, sorry about that, but here we are again, ready for another weeks of the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs, and the nerdery and the murdery. And Zig, why don't you take it over?
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about Sid and Marty Kroft.
Cool.
Sid and Marty Kroft are a Canadian sibling team of television creators and puppeteers. Through their production company, Sid and Marty Kroft Pictures, they've made numerous children's television and variety show programs in the U.S., particularly in the 70s and the early 80s, including H.R. Pufnstuf, Land of the Lost, and Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. Their fantasy programs often feature large-headed puppets, high-concept plots, and extensive use of low-budget special effects. The Kroft brothers, Sid and Marty, were born in Montreal in 1929 and 1937, respectively. For years, they claimed to have been the 5th generation of puppeteers in their family, but it was revealed in 2008 the story was invented by a publicist in the 40s. Their father, Peter, was a clock salesman who moved from Canada to Providence, Rhode Island, and then to New York City. Sid Kroft became a noted puppeteer who worked in vaudeville and was a featured player with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus in the 1940s. Sid created a one-man puppet show, The Unusual Artistry of Sid Kroft, and performed it throughout the world. His father joined him on tour in Paris while Marty stayed in New York. He started using his older brother's puppets to earn money by staging performances. But by the 1950s, the Krofft brothers were working together, and in 1957, they developed Les Poupées de Paris, a puppet show with more mature themes. One of the composers employed to write the song. And after designing the characters and sets for the Hanna-Barbera's The Banana Splits in 1968 to 1970, the Krofts started their own production career in 1969. I am so sorry. One of the composers employed to write the song performed by the Banana Splits was future R&B legend Barry White.
Wow.
Yeah. Barry White also wrote the Banana Splits theme song.
Huh?
So in 69 they did HR Puffin stuff. So what it was Hanna-Barbera wanted a
HR Puffin stuff. Sorry, I can't hear their name without hearing the theme song going through my head.
So the Hanna-Barbera approached them because they were doing, of course, the Les Poupées de Paris in Paris. They also did a show in Six Flags Over Texas, which ran for years, eventually getting replaced by some other puppeteers. And I don't think they have a puppet show there anymore. But they did, Hanna-Barbera was like, hey, we want these big, basically mascot-sized puppets to run around and do goofy stuff in between these little cartoon shorts that we've got. So they hired these guys, and they produced the Banana Splits, which was a great show.
Yep.
Technically not Sid and Marty Kroft, just the Banana Splits portion. But they did film that in Knott's Berry Farm and Six Flags Over Texas. The opening theme where they're running through different theme parks. It's actually two different theme parks, Knott's Berry Farm and outside of LA, and then Six Flags Over Texas, because they couldn't get hooked up with Disney. But if you look in the opening of the Banana Splits theme, of course the gateway, which is still there, they don't have the weird mirrors walking through the gateway anymore. They also were on the log ride, which is still there. And the cars, when they're riding around in the cars, that used to be at Six Flags. It's no longer there. It's where the little Aquaman ride is now. But they got the idea that they wanted to do a television show because they had so much fun doing this Banana Splits bit at the opening. So they did HR Puffin stuff. HR Puffin stuff. The series introduced the team's trademark style of large-scale, colorful designs, puppetry, and special effects, featuring a boy who has been lured into an alternate fantasy world and can never escape. The team also established a storytelling formula to which they would return often. Some people suggest that the Krofft brothers were influenced by marijuana and LSD.
I can see that.
Yeah, HR Puffin stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
But he was a dragon, so, that's why he's puffing. They denied these claims. 2005 interview with USA Today, Marty Kroft said, no drugs were involved. You can't do drugs while you're making shows. Maybe after, but not during. He said, what's bizarre is they were using LSD. They didn't do it when they were going to work. They just liked the bright, broad colors and the vivid color spectrum, and they figured kids would be into that. And not all of their shows did that. Land of the Lost was not brightly colored. And the Krofts also favored quirky superhero stories, that's often with children involved, as the heroes are part of the hero team. Particularly visionary and popular Krofft productions have included The Bugaloos, Lidsville, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, Land of the Lost, The Lost Saucer, Electro Woman and Dyna Girl, and Wonder Bug.
I'm familiar with all of those.
In 76, a developer asked the Krofts to develop an amusement park for the new Omni International Complex in downtown Atlanta. The World of Sid and Marty Kroft. It was an indoor amusement park, but due to poor attendance, it closed after 6 months. The Omni International building that contains the amusement park was renamed the CNN Center, and it is now part of CNN's headquarters. So CNN's headquarters is part of the amazing world of Marty Kroft, Sid and Marty Kroft. The Krofts have occasionally departed from their formula when making new programs further on, such as Pryor's Place and the political puppet satire show DC Follies. The team has attempted to update some of their classic series for younger generations, including the new version of Land of the Lost, Electra Woman and Dinah Girl, HR Pufnstuf, and Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. A new original series, Mutt and Stuff, aired on Nickelodeon between 2015 and 2017. In 2018, the Krofts were awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by the Daytime Emmys, and in 2020, the Krofts were honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for their contributions in television. They currently, they're working on some other stuff. They did bring Sigmund and the Sea Monsters back for a web series, which you can go out and see. I think I've got some links to that on our YouTube page. Mutt and Stuff, which ran for a couple of years. Land of the Lost in 1991, DC Follies in 87, Pryor's Place in 84. Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters in 1980. They did have a puppet bit in the middle of that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten about that.
Which was, okay, so for those of you out there, Barbara Mandrell was a country western singer, Nashville country. And she had a variety show in the early 80s that was the biggest hit in the South. I don't think it played in New York City, but I know it played down here because everybody watched it.
Yeah, it was her and her sisters, and they were all three amazingly talented.
Oh my God, yeah. Just great. And it was a music and comedy and other stuff. And one of the sisters played a dummy, and one of the sisters was super smart. And it was goofy, but God, the music was so good. And again, the puppet bit in the breakdown was Sid and Marty Kroft. So it was greatness. Pink Lady and Jeff and the Krofft Superstar Hour, which became the Bay City Roller Show. Horror Hotel and Lost Island were part of the Krofft Superstar Hours. They had the Brady Bunch Hour in 1977, the Krofft Super Show in 1976, which had Dr. Shrinker, Electra Woman and Dinah Girl, Captain Cool and the Kongs, Wonderbug, Bigfoot and Wild Boy, and Magic Mongo. They also did Donnie and Marie, The Lost Saucer, Far Out Space Nuts, Land of the Lost, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, Lidsville, The Bugaloos, HR Pufnstuf, and again, they did the opening or the puppet bits for the Banana Splits, which is an amazing body of work, especially since it goes from 1968 all the way to 2016. I want to say that Sigmund and the Sea Monster web show ran for a couple of seasons, so they were still doing stuff as as late as 2018, and both of them in their 90s now, but still working. I kind of want to talk about the Krofft Super Show, and I want to give a shout. I've already checked with her. I wanted to give a shout out to Christina Thomas. We would come home from school from kindergarten and first grade, and we would watch that show together religiously every single day. We loved it. We watched it. We loved the puppet bits and some of the other stuff. And it ran on Channel 11 every day. And all of those shows that we mentioned, with the exception of the Bay City Roller bit, ran on the Krofft Super Show Hour. It was basically a repackaged bit from earlier shows that ran on Saturday mornings. But yeah, they ran it every day after school, and we were enamored. So on that Krofft Super Show Hour, you of course got the Dr. Shrinker, you got the Electra Woman and Dinah Girl, you had Wonderbug, Bigfoot and Wild Boy, Magic Mungo, Far Out Space Nuts, The Lost Saucer, Land of the Lost. They would break up episodes of the Bugaloos. You would get a little bit of HR Pufnstuf, some Lidsville, and Sigmund and the Sea Monster. And they were all in that show, depending on what episode you got. Um, in 78, they changed it to the Krofft Superstar Hour, and they got rid of Kool and the Kongs and picked up the Bay City Rollers, which was an actual band out of Scotland, which were, how do I put this nicely? I can't. They were terrible.
Right.
The band they created was a better band. And of course, they had people helping them write that show, like Barry White, so the songs were better. They also did some specials. Electro Woman and Dinah Girl, Krofft Late Night, Sid and Marty Kroft's Red Eye Express, The Patti LaBelle Show, Rock and Wrestling Saturday Spectacular, The Cracker Brothers, Saturday's the Place, Oral Roberts Celebration, the CBS Saturday Morning Preview Special, Anson and Laurie, Bobby Vinton's Rock and Rollers, The Krofft Comedy Hour, the Bay City Rollers meet the Saturday Superstars, Captain Cool and the Kongs present ABC's All-Star Saturday, the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, the Paul Lindy Halloween Special, which is incredible. Jimmy Osmond presents ABC's Saturday Sneak Peek, Really Raquel Preview Review, The World of Sid and Marty Kroft at the Hollywood Bowl, and Fold de Roy. And there were some movies that they helped produce as well, including 2009's Land of the Lost. Sid and Marty Kroft did have a hand in creating that. Harry Tracy, Desperado, Sideshow, Middle Age Crazy, and there was an HR Pup and Stuff movie just called Pup and Stuff. And again, they redid Sigmund and the Sea Monster and Electro Woman and Dinah Girl for web shows, which you can go out and see. They're still available now. They did those for a couple of years. But yeah, I kind of want to talk about a couple of those bits. The first off is the Krofft Super Show. This show was composed of several of these live action segments hosted by Captain Cool and the Kongs, which is a rock band created for the series. Captain Cool and the Kongs were one of my favorite bands as a kid. I know it's kind of ridiculous, but basically they were a glam band. They were doing weird David Bowie stuff mixed with weird New York kind of hip stuff. So it was kind of like a cross between the New York Dolls and David Bowie. And it was just weird. And they put it on for kids. But Captain Cool was Michael Lembeck. Michael Lembeck was a television actor for years. I think he's mostly well known for this, and he was Julie's husband in One Day at a Time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Super Chick, which was Deborah Klinger. She did some work with Fridays back in the early 80s. Turkey, which was Mickey McNeil. Nashville, which was Louise Duarte. And Flatbush, which was Bert Summers, but he was only on season 1. They kind of scaled the band back a little bit in the second season. They also released 2 albums featuring Captain Cool and the Kongs, both in 1978. The self-titled Captain Cool and the Kongs, featuring the band singing, and Stories from the Krofft TV Super Show, which included several comedy skits with Cool and the Kongs. In addition, they released 1 single, And I Never Dreamed, written by Harvey Scales, backed with Sing Me a Song. I think I've included both of those in the playlist. I made a big playlist for this show, which is on our website. But again, Sid and Marty Kroft liked the idea of putting those bands or using a real band. So they hired basically the Bay City Rollers, who had just had a string of hits, but because disco was dying at the time, they brought them on to do the show, and the show fell apart after that because they weren't as cool as Cool in the Kongs. Now, the Krofft Superstar Hour, as again I told you, was a repackaged deal of that. And after 8 episodes, this show was renamed the Bay City Rollers Show. And it aired for 1 season from September 9th, 78 to January 27th, 79 on NBC. NBC also ran other repeat Krofft shows for the Krofft Superstars from 78 to 85. And our little local Channel 11 station picked them up for Saturday afternoons about 4 o'clock. So about the time we got home, Christina and I were glued to the television set, eating biscuits from the breakfast the morning before, and watching these shows. They had two shows on the Krofft Superstar, the Bay City Roller Show. It was the Horror Hotel, which was a comedy which featured Wilhelmina Witchy-Poo from HR Puff and Stuff running a hotel, and she was assisted by other HR Puff and Stuff characters, Dr. Blinky, Seymour the Spider, Orson the Vulture, and Stupid Bat, plus Horatio J. Hoodoo from Lidsville, and were permanent residents of the hotel. They also did The Lost Island, which featured a number of characters from other Krofft shows on the Lost Island with a Bermuda Triangle theme. Stories were somehow combined HR Puff and Stuff, Sigmund the Sea Monster, and Weenie the Genie from Lidsville. A new character named Barbie and other unlikely characters into other storylines were to stay one step ahead of Dr. Death Ray and his henchman Otto. Enoch from the Land of the Lost was even in this, which he was king of the Sleestaks, and he lived within the Lost City on Lost Island, which was also inhabited by dragons, utilizing stop motion footage from Grumpy and Big Alice in Land of the Lost. The good guys would often turn to the island spirit for advice on how to handle whatever plight they had ended up with. But those are the two shows for the Bay City Roller Show. But again, not as good as the Krofft Superstar Hour, which ran from 78 to 85. Another show I would like to talk about is Pink Lady and Jeff, just because it didn't do well, but it was so weird. I'll give you the premise. It was a primetime show. It was not meant for kids. The series starred Japanese female singing duo Pink Lady, composed of Mai Mitsuyo Nimatoto and Keiko Masuda, and American comedian Jeff Altman. Jeff Altman was on the comedy circuit for years. Plus, he would pop up in television shows all the time. Jeff Altman is great, and I've got some bits of Jeff Altman again in the playlist doing this. The format of the show consisted of musical numbers alternating with sketch comedy, and a running gag of the series was the girls' lack of understanding of American culture and of English. In reality, Pink Lady spoke no English at all on the show, and Jeff attempted to translate and explain, leading to more confusion. However, Jeff Altman spoke no Japanese, so they all had to write these bits out where he was trying to explain to them American culture in English, and they would respond back, sometimes in Japanese. And so they played on this idea of him not understanding each other. However, all of that was scripted. They actually didn't understand what each other was saying through the whole show.
Oh, my God.
I know. The series featured Pink Lady performing songs, usually English language disco and pop songs such as Boogie Wonderland or Yesterday, and interactions with celebrity and musical guests. The group would end the show by jumping into a hot tub together. After the poorly rated series premiere, NBC moved Pink Ladies to Friday nights and added Jim Varney as a character actor of earnest fame. The move retooled failed to help ratings, and the series was canceled after 5 episodes. But you did get some really good stuff with Jim Varney. That's why I want to talk about it. But it was one of the shows that kind of failed. But with Sid and Marty Kroft, they had so many ideas popping off. The whole idea was they didn't want to run one show for years and years and years. Like they did Land of the Lost for 2-3 seasons?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they were on to the next thing. They liked the Super Show format because they could use different bits of things that they'd done, throughout their run, like the Outer Space Nuts, Lost Saucer, and they just kind of incorporated them into that show, which is why that show ran for years and the other shows didn't. It's just that's the style that they preferred to work in. And I think if you're good at sketches and small shows, that's what you should do, because honestly, that's what really worked for them. And again, one's in his 80s, one's in his 90s. They're still producing things, not as prolifically as they were in the 70s and 80s, because again, one is in their 80s and one is in their 90s, but they're still working on puppets. Now they do have a crew to work with them, but they're still doing work. And it's not just for children. It's also some for adults. And I think where they worked best was where they blended those two things together, where children could enjoy it, but adults could as well. And the new stuff they did for Sigmund and the Sea Monster was great. You can go out and watch it now. I think Netflix has it. I know you can catch it on YouTube. It's brilliant. The new Electro Woman and Dyna Girl was great. My only problem with the new Electro Woman and Dyna Girl is it doesn't have Norm Alden in it. And Norm Alden, again, hometown boy, Norm Alden from Fort Worth, Texas, also did a children's show here for Channel 11 back when they were still an independent station called ePod. It was in competition with Slam Bang Theater, and it ran for like 10 or 15 years here. I don't think we were old enough to get it, but my dad remembers it really fondly. Like, it was like ePod was good, Icky Twerp was good. I watched them both. But yeah, that's basically it for Sid and Marty Kroft, other than get out there and see those. Check out those openings and promos and videos that I put in that playlist. The playlist is titled, I believe, F77 Sid and Marty Kroft, but it'll be in the listing. And you can catch a lot of that stuff because it's bizarre, because it's music and it's children themes, but it's also comedy, and it's fun and it's funny and it's quirky and bright colors, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's extremely bizarre, but it's really good. I mean,
yes, it is.
I have fond memories from my childhood of Sid and Marty Kroft. H&R Puffin stuff. I loved H&R Puffin stuff. I remember the hotel one too. They were all just, they were so good in our childhood. They're definitely worth a watch. Get your kids watching them.
Mm-hmm. All my kids are huge fans.
Yeah, I think they're great.
Now, they did produce a Banana Splits movie a couple of years ago. It is not associated with this at all. It was basically a horror film with the Banana Splits in it.
Wow.
But they did bust out some of those old Sid and Marty Kroft costumes in it. And they still look great. They still look so good. But yeah, I kind of wish they'd bring Banana Splits back. I think that was the idea. They did the horror movie for basically people our age and slightly younger. But the idea is they kind of want to bring Banana Splits back. But the problem is, it's not just Sid and Marty Kroft. It's also Hanna-Barbera. So there might be some licensing issues. They'd have to come to an agreement on that. And
sure,
Sid and Marty Kroft now work at their own pace. They're still working, but they work at their own pace.
I would imagine so at 80 and 90.
Yes, they are not young men anymore.
Right.
But they're still working. They say that's what keeps them going.
Good stuff. I appreciate that. I always appreciate those walks down memory lane, going back to my childhood and whatnot. So good stuff. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
With that, then, I think we will step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
For today, I got my information off All That's Interesting, Medium, Forensic Tales, and Radio Times. And this is the story of the mysterious death of Rey Rivera.
Rey Rivera.
Rey Rivera was a 32-year-old writer and videographer based in Baltimore, Maryland. He was born on June 10th, 1973 to Angel and Maria Rivera. At the time of his disappearance, Rivera was a finance writer for the Oxford Club as a video contractor. Rivera and his wife Allison had relocated from California to Baltimore to work for his longtime friend Porter Stansberry as a writer and videographer for Stansberry's investment company, Stansberry and Associates Investment Research, which was a subsidiary of Agora Publishing. Rivera stopped working for the company 6 months prior to his death in May 2006, but according to Stansberry, he did freelance work for another subsidiary of Agora Publishing. Rivera had a job as the financial newsletter editor of the Rebound Report. The newsletter was started by Porter Stansberry and was produced under the publishing wing of Agora, which was an umbrella corporation for companies based in the Mount Vernon neighborhood.
Oh, so he was still working for his friend, just in a different capacity.
Correct.
Okay.
And in addition to his writing job, Rivera was also an assistant coach for the men's water polo team at Johns Hopkins University. When Ray and his fiancée Allison Jones moved to Baltimore in early 2004, September 11th had occurred less than 3 years prior. Agora had been under investigation because one of its editors, Stephen Sarnoff, who is grandson of longtime RCA head David Sarnoff, had issued an investment tip on November 9th, 2001, indicating trouble ahead for United Airlines and American parent AMR in his fax-based newsletter, The Options Hotline. The SEC investigated Agora as part of the 911 Commission inquiry, but found no definitive evidence of wrongdoing or advanced knowledge of the week's events. On April 18, 2003, the SEC launched an investigation into the Pirate Investor, which was an Agora newsletter property run by Porter Stansberry. The newsletter had issued a stock tip on Russian government-owned company called 10X, but the stock tip turned out to be bogus. It was into this world, thick with his SEC investigations, connections to the CIA, various propaganda outlets, and the Iran-Contra 9/11 scandals, that Rey Rivera and his fiancée Allison arrived in Baltimore at the invitation of his longtime friend Porter Stansberry for a 2-year experiment. According to Rivera's wife Allison, the two were planning to move back to Los Angeles, where Rivera could pursue his dream of screenwriting. Many sources later confirmed that Rivera was unhappy with the job he held shortly before he died, especially since the stocks he wrote about often didn't rebound as he had hoped. Rivera was also described as the kind of person who wouldn't take off without telling his fiancée and loved ones, but he did. Ray was last seen leaving his home in the middle-class neighborhood of Northwood on May 16, 2006. The last person to see him alive was Claudia, who was his wife's work colleague who was staying over as a house guest. Allison, meanwhile, was out of town on a business trip in Richmond, Virginia. According to Claudia's account, Rivera seemed to be preoccupied with an assignment. At about 4:00 p.m., Claudia heard Rivera answer a call on his cell phone and reply, "Oh shit," and run out the door as if he was late for an appointment. He left driving his wife's car only to come back briefly and run out again, leaving the lights and computer on in his office. Allison tried to reach her husband on his cell phone that day but couldn't get a hold of him. She finally called Claudia at 10 p.m. to ask about her husband, but Claudia said she hadn't seen him since he had left earlier that evening. At that point, Allison assumed her husband was just out drinking, and it wasn't until the next day that she began to worry. After spending the whole day calling friends and family looking for Ray, his wife filed a missing persons report at about 3 p.m. on May 17th. Then on May 23rd, Allison's car was discovered in a parking lot in Mount Vernon, and the next day, Ray's body would be found. The body of Rey Rivera, who had been missing just a little over a week, was found in an abandoned meeting room in the Belvedere Hotel. His body was badly decomposed, indicating he had been deceased for quite some time, and there was a hole in the roof suggesting that he had left off the top of the Belvedere 14 floors up.
Oh! No one noticed that?
It was an abandoned meeting room.
Oh, okay. So no one had been back there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so was the whole hotel abandoned?
No, just the meeting room.
Yeah, but you think somebody would have noticed someone jumping off one roof into another.
Well, the funny thing is the Belvedere Hotel was built in the early 1900s and had a macabre history of unfortunate incidents on its grounds, including a number of suicides.
Huh.
In more recent years, though, it had been largely converted into a condo building.
Okay.
News of Ray's death reached Burbank, California, where he worked as an aquatics coach at high school. And there was an assistant coach, George Acopan, who said, quote, "I remember the players would sprint to the side of the pool during timeouts just to listen to what Ray had to say. The kids really responded to him because they knew what he was talking about." Authorities firmly believed, however, that Ray had jumped from the 14th floor of the hotel. However, the coroner's autopsy report stated his cause of death was undetermined. Meanwhile, his wife and family suspected foul play. His brother Angel said that his brother wouldn't do this. He said, quote, "It's ironic because he was terrified of heights, like so terrified of heights he wouldn't even get on a ladder to hang Christmas lights."
Oh, huh.
Ray had no history of mental illness or sudden shock. On top of that, he had actually booked an office space for a weekend during his disappearance to finish up a project, signaling no intent of suicide. Like many unsolved cases, the uncertainty surrounding Ray's death spawned several theories online, but even those involved with the case had admitted they were really bizarre elements to his death. First, authorities were unable to retrieve video footage from the highly secure building to see what happened when Ray made his way to the higher floors due to a technical problem. As police began to analyze the case, numerous aspects seemed odd about Rivera jumping off the main roof of the Belvedere Hotel, partly because the hotel had an angle roof and there was a considerable horizontal distance between the hotel tower and the location of the hole in the lower roof. There would have been a vertical fall of approximately 177 feet, which would have taken approximately 3.3 seconds. This suggests that if he did come from the roof and traveled a horizontal distance of 101 feet before impact, he would have had to have had a horizontal speed of 29 miles per hour, and Ray was wearing flip-flops or barefoot and would have had a maximum run of just over 15 feet. So none of this makes sense.
No, it doesn't.
They would end up
what's weird about that is you couldn't have even thrown him off if it was like that.
One would think.
You can't throw somebody 100 feet.
No, 100 feet from one roof to another.
Yeah.
Then there was an obscure note that was uncovered from Ray's computer. The note was typed in small print, folded up in plastic, and taped to his home computer screen along with a blank check. The note was addressed to, quote, brothers and sisters and referred to, quote, a well-played game. It also named famous people who had died, including Christopher Reeve and Stanley Kubrick, as well as ordinary people who Ray knew in real life. The note included a request to make them and himself 5 years younger, and the finding was so puzzling that investigators sent the letter to the FBI, but the feds determined that it was not a suicide note. The cryptic letter pointed to another weird detail about Ray's circumstances, his growing interest in the Freemasons. Excuse me. The note he left behind began and ended with phrases including them in the Masonic order. A representative at a local Maryland lodge confirmed that Ray had inquired about membership on the same day he went missing, but didn't recall anything unusual about their conversation.
Well, that's all you have to do.
Right.
Yeah. Yep, sorry. I don't know if I'm giving away something.
Well, shortly before his death, Ray was also reading books related to Masonry, such as The Builders. And to muddy things further, his wife described a growing paranoia in Rivera in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. She told police that Rivera was unusually anxious when their home alarm had gone off and that an encounter with an unknown man at the park had left her husband visibly distraught. Were these signs of psychological distress, or did Rivera believe that someone was truly after him? Perhaps the creepiest detail of all is that Rivera's sandals and phone were later found intact on the lower roof. So that's where I was talking about. He was either barefoot or in flip-flops when he left the roof, but he left his flip-flops and cell phone behind. Also, his glasses would be found completely intact on the roof.
Okay. I'm with you.
Some conspiracy theorists have pointed to Stansbury's strange behavior during the investigation, particularly his avoidance of the police. His reluctance could simply be a matter of protecting his business from bad publicity. However, if Stansbury was indeed covering something up, no one knows exactly what it was. So what are the theories of Rey Rivera's death? One, ever since the episode on this appeared on Netflix, amateur detectives have been inspired everywhere, with fans looking into clues and coming up with their theories on their own. One of the latest theories links Rivera's death to the David Fincher film The Game, which features a character dying in a similar way to Rivera. The theory posted on Reddit points out a connection between a note left behind by Rivera and the Great Fall, which initially appeared to cause his demise, although the forensics team determined that his cause of death was unexplained. The internet detective noticed the game was listed in Rivera's note, which referenced the Freemasons and family, friends, as well as film, TV shows, and books that he enjoyed. The 1997 film follows a man who participates in a scheme which blurs his concept of reality and ends up with him jumping from the roof of a building through a glass ceiling, and the theory suggests that Rivera was copying the events of the film. The theory has gained so much attention that the show's creator, Terry Dunn Muir, has even spoken out about it. However, Ray's wife, Allison, doesn't see any significance in it. Speaking with Entertainment Weekly, Terry Muir said, quote, "I spoke to Allison Rivera about that. She spent a lot of time with that note, as did the FBI, just going through the note, trying to figure out if there were any clues or anything else in there. She doesn't place any significance on the movie The Game." Second theory, there's a newly released clip which didn't make it into the Netflix series, which prevents a more speculative theory that Ray may have been dropped from a helicopter.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Well,
Or a crane.
Investigative journalist Stephen Janis explained in the new video, quote, "I know it sounds crazy, but this is the kind of case that makes you look more at strange theories. You've got no real evidence given the hole and that nobody else saw him enter the building. He had to come from somewhere." Gary Shivers, who previously worked at the Belvedere, agreed with this theory, saying that's the only possibility I can think of. This new clip has caused some confusion due to the fact that no witness had admitted to hearing or seeing a helicopter at this time. However, police detective Michael Byer offered an explanation to this. Delving into this theory, he said, quote, "Airspace issues, people hearing the helicopter. You're not going to hover down in a helicopter that low. If he were to have been dropped at an altitude higher than the building, who knows where he would have went." Mm-hmm. Theory number 3, one of the leading theories and one Baltimore officials appear to lean towards, is that Rivera died by suicide. Having plunged through the roof of the room where he was found, it is assumed that Rivera had jumped to his death. It began with Freemason relating wording, "Brothers and sisters around the world, right now volcanoes are erupting. What an awesome sight," and also contained a long list of family members and celebrities who Rivera wanted to make 5 years younger. The note had been folded up very small and taped to the back of his computer. However, a number of factors led to his death being ruled as unexplained, and many doubted as whether he had taken his own life. In the episode, his loved ones insist that it would have been out of character and emphasize that he exhibited no signs of mental distress at the time of his death. And Ray had actually had a new lease on life, which was a lovely wedding to his wife Allison and a steady job with his friend Porter Stansberry. There's also the possibility that the letter could have been written in code if Rivera indeed did have ties to the Masons, which is why many are unable to make sense of it.
What?
Right.
Okay. Dude, I bet I know a dozen Masons off the top of my head. If there's anything cryptic about them, it's that, you know, where do they get the money to pay all those dues? That's
right.
This is not, I mean, you know, a lot of people, well, the Freemasons, no. Anybody who knows any Shriners know that that's just about having drinks and goofing off. Mm-hmm. The mystic part of it is just an excuse or part of the ritual they go through so they could sit around and jack with each other, you know, give each other electric shocks. That was a big thing back in the 60s and the 70s.
Wow. So the fourth theory, in the first episode of the Netflix episode, reporters and detectives expressed doubt about Rivera falling to the roof. There were 3 potential jumping points to the hotel: the very top roof, the parking garage, and the 11th floor ledge. Many were skeptical about the first 2, as it would have been either too high or too far for him to land through the meeting room roof. The 11th floor theory would only be possible if Ray went through a room or office, since none of the hallways led to the ledge, and even so, the room's windows were very small and no one's mentioned seeing him. As well as this, the camera on the rooftop was also disconnected, adding more mystery to the case. Some other pieces of evidence also didn't make sense, 2 of those being that Rivera's phones and glasses were found intact when he was found, as I had said earlier.
Yeah, and his flip-flops.
Uh-huh. The forces that killed Rivera did severe damage to his body, so it struck people as odd that not a scratch could be found on any of those items, leading many to speculate that they were staged and that someone had positioned Rivera's body beneath the hull as well. The medical examiner also told Rivera's wife that the way his shins were broken were not consistent with a fall. Theory 5 revolves around Ray's work with Angora Inc., with whom Stansberry's company is affiliated with. Rivera wrote the Rebound Report for a division of Agora, but according to WBAL TV Baltimore, he was unhappy about his work because some of the stocks he wrote about were not rebounding, which meant lost money for anyone who bought them based on his advice. In the fall of 2005, Rivera left Agora full-time and began producing videos for the company under contract. Because his filmmaking career wasn't paying the bills, Rivera and his wife moved from Southern California to Baltimore, and it was here he worked with his old high school water polo buddy, Porter Stansberry, who had his own financial newsletter business. Rivera helped with Stansberry's business in several capacities as a writer and freelance videographer. And before Rivera was hired, Stansberry's company was also under investigation. According to the Baltimore Sun, the business was ordered to pay $1.5 million in restitution civil penalties for disseminating false stock information and defrauding public investors through a financial newsletter. Stansberry, however, has denied any wrongdoings. Over the week of his disappearance, Rivera's home alarm went off 2 times, and the night he went up missing, Rivera picked up that call from work, but it was impossible to determine who called him because the call came from a switchboard. As the case unfolded, Stansberry was said to have obtained a gag order to prevent employees from legally talking about Rivera, but no one from Agora has ever been implicated in Rey Rivera's death. According to Unsolved Mysteries, the company staff was advised not to speak about the case with media or law enforcement, and Stansberry has continually declined to be interviewed, although producer Terry Muir has confirmed that she did speak with him. Rivera's brother Angel suggested that someone powerful may have lost a lot of money after one of his publications got out. So, all those theories, what do you think?
I have an idea. I think that it, as you said, it was probably somebody kind of more powerful, like his brother thinks, somebody more powerful who lost a crap ton of money because this guy's just a writer and a video guy giving out stock tips. Now, granted, the stock tips he gave out were probably data that he got from somebody else, but he produced them in this letter because stock tip guys are dry. You want a writer to translate what they're telling you.
Right.
I understand that. That's probably why his buddy hired him, because he's a writer. So somebody gets this information and blames him, even though he probably didn't produce the data himself. Takes him out in the middle of someplace in Baltimore, and there are a lot of places that are abandoned in Baltimore, especially at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Drops him off of a building or cliff or whatever.
Not drops, had to have thrown.
Throws him off. And then, for some unknown reason, scoops him up and throws him in this hole that's at this hotel. A la like the Tombs in Baltimore. Which, I don't know why they didn't do that. So,
well, and you've definitely got the hole in the roof, which he definitely came through.
Oh, they know he definitely came through that hole?
They're pretty sure he came through that hole because the hole was not in the roof prior.
Okay. Then my theory is wrong. I assumed that the hole was already there. I don't know how the hell they did it.
Yeah, and that's why I said this is the mysterious death of Rey Rivera, because a whole lot of it doesn't make any sense.
He couldn't have jumped and or been thrown 100 feet. When you say it was 100 feet, he had to go out 100 feet and then down, right?
Correct.
Yes, he's a falling body. It can be affected by wind, but not that much.
No. Not at all. I think this one is going to remain a mystery as to exactly what happened with him. I do think I agree with you that I think it was tied to the stocks. There's an awful lot that was going on there. Could it have been somebody who lost a whole bunch of money and decided to take it out on him? There's that mysterious phone call he got before he ran out of the house where he just said, "Oh shit," and then ran out of the house.
Yep.
There was the weird fact that his alarm kept going off at home in the middle of the night that was making him nervous. The fact that he was remaining nervous and agitated. There's a whole lot surrounding this that just kind of states that someone was very possibly after him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, I think this one's going to remain a mystery. It's definitely a very extremely mysterious death. I don't know what to think on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Although the helicopter and or crane idea, because there's a lot of construction going on in downtown Baltimore too. He could have just as easily been pushed off a crane.
Yeah. Okay, so that'll take us to the end of another recording week. As always, you can find us on our website, nerdarymurdery.com, where you can find the links to our social media. You can find our contact information, where if you wish to let us things you like to hear, things you don't want to hear, let us know anything like that. You can find.
We also have our YouTube page, which you can get to with it's got links and videos and things that we like and enjoy.
You can also find the link to our merchandise, where if you wish to show off your Nerdery and Murdery fandom, you can certainly find it there. And you can find the link to our patrons. So if you wish to help donate to our show, help keep us going, we really do appreciate each and every one of you. You get exclusive episodes as well as episodes early.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. And with that,
I have been Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery.
Cue the music.